What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about the newest Shudder original film. And I talked about a Shudder original film recently, You'll Never Find Me, that was really impressive to me. It was a very quiet, confined horror movie that I think created really great atmosphere, and it was genuinely scary. And so having Shudder put something out that great recently, I was excited to see what they were going to put out next. They obviously have Late Night with the Devil coming to the platform very soon, which has been circulating its theatrical run, which I was not a huge fan of, but I know a lot of people really liked it. And so the movie I'm going to be talking about today, I knew nothing about before I went in to watch it. I hadn't seen a trailer. I just saw Shudder dropped it. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Baghead. Baghead is directed by Alberto Corredor. Following the death of her estranged father, Iris learns she has inherited a run-down centuries-old pub. She travels to Berlin to identify her father's body and meet the solicitor to discuss the estate. Little does she know, when the deed is signed, she will become inextricably tied to an unspeakable entity that resides in the pub's basement. Baghead, a shape-shifting creature that can transform into the dead. So the plot description of the film sounded super interesting, and I went into this one knowing very little about it. And it's not very good, unfortunately. It's not the worst thing in the world by any means. There were actually some moments in it that pleasantly surprised me. But the problem that I have with this movie is it completely lacks originality. I feel like you could even look as recently as last year's Talk to Me, but it hits a lot of conventions of typical supernatural horror films. The performances aren't all that spectacular, and I'll go into a little bit more detail when I talk about the film as a whole. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Iris, who we see her hanging out with her friend, and she gets a call that her father has recently passed away, and we learn that she is estranged from her father. They never talk to each other, and so she goes to Berlin where he was living and finds out that he was running this old pub and she has inherited the pub. She's talking with the person who is handling her father's affairs after he's passed away, and he highly recommends that she sell the property. She's probably not going to make a whole lot of money off of it, but it's just a way for her to get rid of it so she doesn't have to deal with it. And she's kind of at a place in her life where she's really uncertain about what she wants to do and where she wants to go with her life. And so she says, hey, I don't really want to sell this right away. I kind of want to stick around and see what's going on here and what I can do with this property. And so she goes in there and she's living there and she starts hearing these really weird, eerie noises. And one night she has this guy come and just barge in while she's in there and say, hey, I'll give you this $2,000. I have to go see the woman in the basement and talk to my wife. And she's like, what are you even talking about? At first, she's off put by it, and she takes his money and says, hey, come back tomorrow and I'll let you go in the basement. I don't have the keys to get down there right now, but come back and I'll let you down there. So the next day he comes back, she gets the keys to the basement, goes in the basement, and there's this big hole in the wall in the basement, and this creature comes out and sits in this chair. And they put a bag over the creature's head. When you set this timer or give the creature something affiliated with the person who has passed away, it can summon that person from the dead and give you 2 minutes to talk to that person. And so Iris figures this out and is curious as to why it's going on, why this thing lives in the basement. And she realizes that since she signed the deed to this property, she has control over this woman and can tell her not to leave the basement, not to do specific things. And so the entire film is Iris trying to figure out, what is this creature? How does it have this powers? And trying to prevent this creature from causing harm to others. So as I said, I wasn't a huge fan of this movie, but there are a couple of positives. I think that the movie has some genuinely creepy moments. I was impressed with some of the atmosphere. The practical effects with the woman are pretty good, honestly. It looks really creepy and terrifying. When it jumps to the CGI elements that they couldn't do with practical effects, it gets kind of cheesy, but I really liked the atmosphere in a lot of moments. The setting of the movie in this old abandoned pub is really nice. I liked it. It was really creepy and atmospheric. It was pretty well shot, and the editing was decent. I didn't think any of that was really terrible by any means. I also thought the premise was interesting. Obviously, with Talk to Me coming out last year, this whole idea of doing some kind of ritual and being able to contact the dead, this is something that's not new. It's been done again and again and again in movies, whether it be through seances or whatever it may be, and what are the repercussions of contacting the dead. So you can do this premise The problem I have with this movie as a whole is it doesn't really do anything new or interesting. You can pretty much guess the plot beats of this movie after about the first 10 minutes, and it went in about exactly the same direction as I thought that it was going to go in. There weren't new things added into the story that really kind of pulled at you as a viewer to create something more suspenseful. It was just kind of more of the same after a while, and the things towards the third act that they reveal that are supposed to be shocking or surprising. I've seen it done in movies before, so it wasn't like anything that caught my attention or that I was really like, wow, this is incredibly impressive. The film gets to a point where it starts to rely really heavily on cheap jump scares that are really poorly placed and that aren't scary whatsoever, which was unfortunate because I think, they really created this cool environment that had the opportunity to build something really atmospheric and unsettling, but for the most part it was just putting you in that setting, having a moment where the woman that came out after the bag was put over her head and she was transformed into someone else, the timer would run out and then it would say something creepy and it would jump at someone or scream or something. It wasn't anything that I wasn't expecting, which is unfortunate because with something like this that's been done over and over again, you just feel like there is an ability to do something new. Like Talk to Me, having that premise of talking with the dead is not anything new, but Talk to Me was able to do something inventive and unique and unsettling with it. And that's why I loved that movie so much. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about this movie. I felt like it was relatively lackluster. It's not the worst thing I've ever watched, but there are so many films in this genre that are much, much better. So have you seen Baghead? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie wasn't very good. I thought the performances were pretty bad. And outside of some decent atmosphere, it was really just run of the mill. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.